Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. In this series of important lectures for UPSC, state PCS and other examinations, I will be discussing the Syrian civil war with you. This is a very long and ongoing war. It has been going on since 2011 and many questions have been asked and can be asked in the upcoming examinations over this. My name is Dr. Mahipal Singh Rathod and I am a faculty for General Studies at StudyIQ. First of all, let us begin with the location of Syria. Why is the location important? Because many times questions are asked upon the neighboring countries about regarding borders. So you can see in this map that this is Syria, and to the north of Syria we have Turkey. To the east of Syria we have the country of Iraq. Then to the south is Jordan, and small border is shared by Israel and then Lebanon. This blue colored country is Lebanon. So these are the neighbors of Syria in the region of Middle East. This is a more zoomed in view. You can see that this small country of Lebanon here, then there is Golan Heights, which is the disputed area between Israel and Syria. To know more about Golan Heights, you can see my video on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Then there is Iraq. The Euphrates River flows from Turkey to Iraq to Syria and then on to Iraq. There is another important river in Iraq that is called Tigris. Both Euphrates and Tigris flow into the Persian Gulf. So in this political map of Syria, I will show you the important cities that are often in the news. So this is the capital, Damascus or Damashq, right in the south of the country. Then you have the city of Homs in the central region, and in the north we have Aleppo. So this red dot is Aleppo. It is often in the news. Then there is also the city of Deir ez-Zor that is also in the news many times because it is on the road to connect Iraq with Syria. And this region of Syria is mostly desert. It is called the Syrian desert, and the major population is located along the coastal regions here in the Latakia province. This is Latakia province. Then there is the city of Tartus. Tartus is a very important naval base which is used by Russia in the Mediterranean Sea. So Tartus, Latakia, and then this belt of Homs, Damascus. Basically this border near Lebanon and this coastal region is the main population center. And in the north, Aleppo. Rest entire country is very sparsely populated. It is mostly desert. And here is Raqqa, the capital of the Islamic Caliphate formed by ISIS. So these are the few major cities in Syria. Now I will begin with the nature of the Syrian war. First of all, this started as a civil unrest. It started because the people of Syria were not happy with its government and then they started protesting. Later, these protesting groups led to a war with the government, and then it became a civil war, or not just a civil unrest, a civil war between the different groups of government and the protesting people. Later, it acquired the nature of a religious war. Why? Because the government of Syria, led by Bashar al-Assad, is considered to be a Shia government, and the Sunnis, which are in the majority in the country, they were being persecuted by this government. And so to help to support these Sunnis, people, the Sunni jihadists from all over the world, they started pouring into this, and it took a color of religious war between Shia and Sunni. Then it is also a proxy war or a cold war between the major powers of the world like USA and Russia, because one side is supporting the rebels, that is the USA, and Russia is supporting the government. Then it is also called as the Arab Winter. Why? You might have heard about the Arab Spring. So that was a time when protests, demonstrations took place in many countries of the Arab world. It led to democracy in a few of them like Egypt, like Tunisia. But the Arab Spring also failed in countries like Libya, Syria, where now this condition is called as Arab Winter. Why? Because this is not a spring, not a time for flowers to bloom, but this is a very gloomy time period, and hence it is called Arab Winter. So it is not just a civil war. So whenever you see the term Syrian civil war, it is just for the sake of practical purposes that we say it is a civil war. It is much more than that. Now, which are the major factions in this war? First is the government, the regime. I will also refer to this as regime in the future. This is headed by Bashar al-Assad. He has been the president since 2000. He is an authoritarian and is often considered a dictator. although there were elections, but no one stands in front of Bashar al-Assad, and he always wins the elections by more than 90% vote, sometimes 90, sometimes 95%. His party is called the Baath Party. You might remember this Baath Party from Iraq, Saddam Hussein. He was also a leader of Baath Party. So Baath Party was in power in Iraq as well as Syria, both of the countries, both of the neighbors. This government is supported by Iran and Russia internationally. Both these countries have been providing military as well as persons as well as people to fight. So militia from Iran have flown into Syria and they have fought on behalf of the Syrian government. And same, Russia has sent its jet fighters, its army, its tanks, everything. China is also a supporter of the Assad government, but only diplomatically. It has not sent any weapons, any troops, but it supports Syrian cause in United Nations. It has used its veto power many times. Russia and China both have used their veto powers many times to stop resolutions against Syria in the Security Council. Then we have the moderate rebels. So these are the groups that started the protests in the first time, and the Free Syrian Army was formed out of those. Then there is a group called Friends of Syria. It is a group of international countries that support these people of Free Syrian Army, that is these moderate rebels. So the Western nations of USA, England, France, Germany, as well as countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar. These are known as Gulf states. Why? Because they lie at the Persian Gulf. They lie near the Persian Gulf. Then there is also Jordan and Turkey, the neighbors of Syria. They also support these rebels. Why? Because they want to see Bashar al-Assad go. They are not at good terms with the Assad government. Never have been. The third is the radical opposition. So Jabhat al-Nusra, this is the branch of Al-Qaeda in Syria. It is the biggest radical opposition group right now. And they have recently changed their name in July 2016 to Jabhat Fateh al-Sham. Sham means Syria. It is the old name of Syria in Arabic language. So this radical opposition groups is supported by Saudi Arabia and Qatar. So you might see that they are supporting both Jabhat al-Nusra as well as the Free Syrian Army. Now the support to Jabhat al-Nusra is not open, not direct, because this al-Nusra has been said to be a terrorist organization by many countries and also the United Nations. So the support is covert. So money goes in to support al-Nusra by covert means, by hawala, etc. In this map, you can quickly see which countries support Assad and which countries support the rebels. So all the countries in green, first Turkey, then Libya, then Saudi Arabia, Jordan, these are supporting the rebels. Then the blue countries, this is Russia here and then this is Iran. So these are supporting the government of Syria. And Iraq is not in a position to support anyone. Iraq itself is fighting its civil war. Then comes the fourth and the most important group. This is ISIL, the Islamic State of Iraq and Al-Sham. Earlier it was Levant, for L for Levant, and now then it was S for Sham. So ISIL and ISIS, you can see the two names. Levant is also the ancient name of the region which comprises of Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. Later ISIS has changed its name to Islamic State, just Islamic State. That was after they conquered all those cities in Iraq like Fallujah, Mosul, and established their own caliphate. This caliphate was established in Mosul, and the capital of ISIS is often called as Raqqa. It is a city in Syria. So Raqqa is in Syria and Mosul is in Iraq. This caliphate was announced in Mosul by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He is the head of ISIS. So as I already told you, ISIS was also an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. So along with Al-Nusra, it was also a branch of Al-Qaeda in Syria and Iraq. But it broke away from Al-Nusra in 2014. They severed their ties from Al-Nusra. Actually, Al-Nusra disowned them. They said that ISIS is carrying out atrocities against fellow Muslims, and this is not the way that we do our business, and so ISIS has nothing to do with us and we are separate. So that was the statement given by Al-Nusra back in 2014. So imagine, this group was so barbaric that even Al-Qaeda said that we are not that much barbaric as ISIS. The last faction is Kurd. So Kurds are an ethnic people. They are a group of people who live in three different countries: Syria, Iraq and Turkey. Actually, they live in one region, but due to the geopolitical implications of World War One, their area was divided into these three different countries. So, if you remember the Sykes-Picot Agreement, I explained this in the Israel-Palestine video. So, the Sykes-Picot Agreement divided their areas into three different countries. So now they want autonomy and they want their own country. So in Iraq, they have an agreement with the government and they have a semi-autonomous region called Kurdistan in the north of Iraq. So in Syria also, the Kurds of Syria, at the time the civil war broke out in 2011, they took great use of this opportunity and they also declared their own autonomy. So they said that just like Iraq has Kurdistan, we will also have our own Kurdistan-like area, and they called this Rojava, the Republic of Rojava. So to build this Republic of Rojava, an army was formed. This was called Syrian Democratic Forces. So now SDF is a major fighting force in Syria. It is comprising of Kurds and also some other people from Turkey, but mainly Kurds. These are the two big Kurdish militias, the YPG, that is the People's Protection Unit, and the PKK, Kurdistan Workers Party. This PKK is mainly fighting in Turkey. They are fighting against the government of Turkey to establish their own independent areas in the southern and eastern part of Turkey. This has been declared as a terrorist organization by Turkey as well as UN and by few other countries. I'm sorry, not UN. And YPG is mainly fighting in Iraq and Syria. So these are the two different groups, but they support each other, all these three: SDF, YPG and PKK. Remember these names please, YPG and PKK. They can be directly asked in questions. This area in the green color, this is the area of Kurd people in Syria, and this is the area that they have been demanding as an independent country. Now let me tell you the story of this civil war, how it began. Firstly, Bashar al-Assad is a Shia Alawite. This Alawite is a small sect of Shia people and they are in minority in Syria. Majority are Sunnis, around 83% of the country is Sunni, and the rest 13% are Shias and some 5% are other communities like Christians. So Syria has many different types of religions. Now, being a Shia, he and his father Hafiz al-Assad have been ruling Syria since almost 50 years. So Hafiz al-Assad came to power in 1973 and he died in 2000. At that time, Bashar al-Assad came to power. So these Shia minority government, they have been abusing the human rights of many Sunni people who have been protesting against the government, and there is also a vast political repression. There was huge political repression during both Hafiz al-Assad's time and Bashar al-Assad's time, and this is the reason that there was some anger already against the government. Then there is the case of human rights abuses, widespread poverty in the in Syria, and in 2007 to 2010 there was a severe drought. Due to this drought, food prices shot up, there was widespread hunger, and the cost of living went up, and all these conditions led to an uprising, and these protests were held in March of 2011 against the government, but police and army fired upon the protesters, and after a few days the protesters also took up arms and they shot back at the police and army. This is how the civil war began. This is how the civil unrest began. So in summer of 2011, these ongoing protests became violent, and some officers and soldiers, they defected from the army. They left the army and they formed another organization called the Free Syrian Army. They supported the rebels. So this FSA was formed and it started fighting against the government and Assad. By the beginning of 2012, extremists and jihadis from all over the world, they started to come to Syria and fight the government. They fought against the Assad government. Why? Because Assad was Shia and all these jihadis were Sunni, so they considered it as a religious duty to bring down this Shia government of Syria. In January, a group called Jabhat al-Nusra was formed. This was the branch of Al-Qaeda in Syria. Also, Muslim Brotherhood, it is a big organization which has its roots in Egypt, Turkey mainly, and many other countries as well, but mainly in Turkey and Egypt. So this Muslim Brotherhood also started fighting the government. This was backed by Turkey. In 2012 only, Kurdish people, as I told you earlier, they seceded and declared autonomy. Why? Because all the army from the northern Kurdish areas was sent to fight these protesters in Homs and Aleppo. And so when the army left, the Kurds took over and they declared their autonomy. In 2012 only, Friends of Syria group was formed. This was a group of international countries which aimed diplomatically to solve the Syrian crisis and bring down the Assad government. So it consisted of USA, Saudi Arabia, France, and many other Western countries. They all wanted the Assad government to go. In 2012, Iran, the biggest ally of Syria, Iran is also a Shia country, remember this. So Iran started sending military support to Assad. Why? Because they thought that the situation is getting out of hand and the Assad government might fall. So they wanted a strong Shia government to be there in the Middle East, and for that they sent military, they sent militias, they sent weapons, everything that you can possibly think of to fight a war to Syria. So to counter the Iran influence, the Gulf states sent their support to the rebels. So Gulf states plus Turkey, they started supporting the rebels, weapons, money, everything. Also, Hezbollah joined the fight. Hezbollah is a Shia militia based in Lebanon, and the main aim of Hezbollah is to destroy Israel. But at this time, when Assad was under attack, to save this Shia government, they started fighting the FSA and the Al Nusra Front. Lastly, Jordan also joined the fight because the Saudi Arabia and Qatar, they convinced Jordan that you join us because we need the boundary that you have with Syria to supply weapons, to supply men and money. So finally, Jordan also joined the support to rebels. By 2013, this had become a conflict of involving the entire Middle East, and so USA also approved some training to the rebels. Why? Because all these rebel groups like Jabhat al-Nusra, their ultimate aim was not only to destroy Bashar al-Assad, but then after taking over Syria, they wanted to destroy USA. So the USA feared that we can have another 9/11 like attacks on our soil if these rebel groups like al-Nusra come to power. So to stop that, that is the CIA, they started training the moderate rebel groups. They wanted them to take power after Assad goes. But it was not successful. Until date, they have always failed. USA has always failed to train and supply them. At the same time, USA asked Saudi Arabia to stop funding the extremist group because the Saudi Arabia was supporting al-Nusra as well, not officially but covertly. In August 2013, something very important took place. It is called a watershed moment in the civil war. For the first time, the Syrian government used sarin gas and chemical attacks using sarin gas took place in the areas of Ghouta. It is a suburb of Damascus. So here more than 700 people were killed in just one day in this attack. So sarin gas is a neurotoxin, and this was considered a crime against humanity because it is illegal to use biological and chemical weapons in war. But Syrian government used this, and it also had many other small attacks in all of the country in places like Aleppo, Homs, and few other cities. But everywhere the casualties were very less. But in Damascus, many people died. It is estimated that almost 1,000 people died in 2 days. So after this chemical attacks, there was huge outcry in the entire world. Many countries joined in saying that Bashar al-Assad should go, the government should be toppled. But Russia, its old friend, Syria's old friend, Russia came to its rescue, and they convinced Assad that let your chemical weapons go to OPCW and they will dismantle all of them and your government will be saved. Otherwise, USA will definitely attack you. So, Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, it is an international organization. OPCW dismantled all the chemical weapons that Syria had, and for this they won the 2013 Nobel Peace Prize. Interestingly, at this time, Obama wanted to attack Syria, but he went to the Senate, the US Senate, that is their parliament, for sanctioning this attack. But the Senate said no. A majority vote was against the attack on Syria. They said that we cannot have another war like we did in Iraq and Afghanistan, so we should not attack. And thus, Obama's plan to attack Syria at that time was stopped. Now in 2014, this group called ISIS or ISIL, it broke away from Al Qaeda and it started occupying territories that Al Nusra had, the Free Syrian Army had, and also it started attacking Kurd. So Kurd, FSA, and Al Nusra, all three people were attacked. All these three groups were attacked. But interestingly, it did not fight the Assad government. Firstly, it attacked these three groups, and it captured a lot of area in Iraq in 2014 itself. And Raqqa was made the de facto capital in the north of Syria. They also announced the establishment of a caliphate in Mosul after they conquered the cities of Fallujah and Mosul in the summer of 2014, around June. So in June and July, this group called ISIS attacked Iraq from Syria, and so they captured almost the entire north of Iraq also. Now this one country of Syria plus Iraq, they called it the Islamic State. In September, USA said that we have to attack and stop ISIL, and so an international coalition was formed, a joint task force was formed, and they started bombings against ISIL. From 2015, suddenly Turkey starts attacking Kurds. Why? As I told you, the PKK and YPG both are considered terrorist organizations by Turkey. They are fighting a civil war against Turkey. They have done many bombings and many terrorist attacks in the Turkish cities. And in 2015, they carried out a few bombings in Istanbul, which led to the death of many people. And so Turkey started bombing the Kurds in both Syria and Iraq, not only in their own country but in their neighboring countries. Then ISIS had a great success in Palmyra. It took the ancient city of Palmyra, where many ancient heritage sites are present. World heritage sites are present from Roman times. Almost 2000 to 3000 year old structures are present in Palmyra. So you can see even after USA started bombing areas under ISIL was not weakened. They grew strong, and by the middle of 2015, they were holding a large area of Syria and Iraq. So in September, Syria asks Russia to help it because Assad government was losing. ISIS was attacking them now. The rebels were also getting stronger, and Assad government was on the verge of collapsing. But at that time, old friend Russia comes and intervenes militarily. They started bombings using their Russian jets against ISIL, Nusra, FSA, everyone. So all these three groups were attacked. Only Kurds were not attacked. But after some time, they started bombing Kurds as well. So this campaign of Russia was very successful, and ISIL started to lose ground, as well as the other groups like Free Syrian Army. They also lost ground, and the Bashar al-Assad government was saved. Now USA, which is supporting the rebel like FSA, and Russia, which is supporting the army of the Syrian government, they came face to face. You can understand now how this is a proxy war, or it has become like a Cold War situation where many wars were fought like this, that two people are fighting. Let's say A and B are fighting, but A is backed by USA and B is backed by Russia, and or at that time USSR. So now the Syrian civil war also became a proxy war after Russia intervened. So USA and Russia held talks in February, and they said that let's have a ceasefire, but it failed within few days. Again in September 2016 also they held ceasefire talks, but that also failed within few days. So this is the situation as of today. In October 2016, the estimated death that have been caused due to the Syrian civil war are 4,70,000, or almost 500,000. That is a huge number for a small country like Syria. Remember that the population of Syria was just 21 or 22 million around 2011, and 1.9 million people have been wounded. So you can see that 1.9 million wounded and 0.5 million dead. So every 1 in 44 people in Syria have died due to this civil war. This is the map of 2016, the various areas captured or controlled by the different factors, the different factions. So the red colored areas that you see are the areas governed by are under the control of the regime. So the red color is regime or the Assad government. This grey colored area is all ISIS. This yellow colored area is Kurdish people, and in the green around Aleppo. This is Aleppo. So the areas around Aleppo, they are controlled by FSA, the moderate rebels, and all this white colored area that you see in between, this is controlled by Al-Nusra. So you can see it is a mix of everything. Somewhere there is Al-Nusra, somewhere there is the Free Syrian Army, but majorly you can say that the north of the country, that is areas around Aleppo and the areas around Homs, they are under the control of the moderate rebels, and some areas under the Al-Nusra. The desert part, this is the Syrian desert. So this desert part is under the control of ISIS, and the population center, the major population centers around the Mediterranean coast as well as around the border of Lebanon and in the south of the country, they are controlled by government. But here also in southern area, you will see that some area is controlled by Free Syrian Army. As I told you earlier, these are the populated areas. You can see the small dots. These are the villages and towns. So they are mainly situated in this belt. So what has happened is that majorly all the cities are under the control of the government, and the areas around the cities, the suburbs, the villages, they have gone under the control of various rebels like Kurd, the FSA, as well as the Al-Nusra Front. So this is the situation right now. Now we will talk about the few peace initiatives that have taken place. So in 2012, the UN Security Council called for Geneva talks. So this is known as Geneva 1. It failed. And again in 2014, they called various factions for talks for stopping the civil war, but here also these talks failed because the government did not want Bashar al-Assad to step down. Basically the Syrian government said that Assad will not step down, and that was the main condition that all the other groups had. Everyone said that for peace to be achieved, Assad has to go. Maybe we will think of something different, elections, etc., but the first condition is Assad should go, and Assad was not ready for that, so these talks failed. Then in 2015, countries like USA, Russia, Germany, they started the Vienna process. But these Vienna talks also failed because Russia said that it will bomb ISIL and ISIS, and at the same time USA was also not ready to accept the conditions of Assad government. Then the third round of talks in Geneva started in January 2016. They led to the ceasefire, but again a long-lasting peace agreement was not formed. Now, what are the major issues of this Syrian civil war? I will discuss them one by one. The first is crime against humanities. So in this civil war, there has been a lot of crimes and atrocities that are considered crime against humanities by the various UN bodies. There have been the use of cluster bombings. Cluster means a lot of bombs are dropped together in civilian areas. These cluster bombs can destroy areas of 500 meters, like half a kilometer of civilian area or a neighborhood can be destroyed by just one bombing. Civilians have been targeted in this war. Then there have also been large number of human rights violations by both the sides, by the regime, by the moderate groups, by the extremist groups. They have killed civilians, they have executed them, they have chopped off the hands and legs of various people. They have tortured. There have been various tortures. There have been cases of imprisonment up to many 2 years, 3 years, so and so on. Also chemical weapons use, sarin gas attacks, as I talked about. Then there has been the barbarism of ISIS that is unprecedented, that has never been seen. They have burned people alive, they have executed 100 people together, and they film this all and they put it on internet. So this has been seen as a new wave of warfare. It is unprecedented, that has never been seen before. There have also been mass killings, especially by ISIS. So all these have been crimes against humanities. Another aspect is that targeting of minorities. So Alawites, that is the group of Shia people. Bashar al-Assad is an Alawite. So Alawites and Druze is also a sect of people living in Syria and Jordan. So these people have been targeted by the rebel groups. Also Christians have been targeted because there is a small minority of Christians in Syria as well. So wherever they find these people, they are specifically targeted by the rebel groups. On the other hand, the Shias have formed their own militias, and wherever the Sunnis are in the minorities, that is the Shias are in majority, they have targeted the Sunnis. So both the sides have committed crimes against minorities. So remember this name, Alawites and also Druze. So Alawites, Druze, Christians and Shias targeted, and also Sunnis have been targeted. This has been going on in Iraq as well. Remember that Iraq is a Shia majority country, but the northern areas of A are Sunni. So this northern area have been under the control of ISIS, but now as the ISIS is losing and the Iraqi army is proceeding against this northern areas, there have been reports that the Sunni people of the northern Iraq have been targeted. Then we have the refugee crisis. Due to this ongoing civil war, there has been a massive displacement of people. 6 million, 60 lakhs have been displaced internally. They have to leave their homes, and mostly people have gone from small towns and villages to the bigger cities like Damascus and Homs. But even there, the civil war is going on. So there are large number of refugee camps all over Syria. Then there have been 4.8 millions externally displaced. That means that almost 50 lakh people have left Syria and gone on to other countries. So there has been, due to this huge influx of refugees, there has been a refugee crisis in Europe, Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan. See, Lebanon is a very small country, and now such is the condition that every 1 in 4 people who are living in Lebanon right now is a refugee from Syria. Then Turkey also has 27 lakh people from Syria living in Turkey. You don't hear about it in the news very much, but Turkey has allowed lots and lots of Syrian refugees to live in their country. Then many people have gone on to Europe, and you might have heard about the European refugee crisis. It has been in news since past 1.5 years. Many countries are not allowing the refugees from Syria to come into their countries, but many countries are allowing them, like Germany. They are welcoming them. The UNHCR, that is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, it is the refugee agency of UN, it considers this situation to be the worst after World War II. According to UNHCR, there are the most number of refugees in the world right now after World War II. In the last 70 years, the number of refugees in the world has not been so high, and this is mainly due to the Syrian civil war. Now, a very big impact has been on the country itself. Entire Syria has broken down. The infrastructure is in tatters due to the 5-year-long bombing campaigns of the Syrian government, of USA, of Russia. All these people, they have bombed the various buildings. So hospitals, bridges, schools, everything is destroyed. There has been a loss of cultural heritage. You must have seen ISIS destroying old statues in Palmyra. They have been destroying ancient 3000-year-old structures that they consider un-Islamic. So a lot of cultural heritage is gone. Poverty, illiteracy has increased in Syria. There has been a huge health crisis. Polio that had been gone from Syria has resurfaced because of the unhealthy conditions in the various refugee camps. Quality of life has plummeted dramatically. And just to give you an example, the average life expectancy of Syria was 75 years before the civil war began. Now it is just 50. People who have come out of Syria as refugees, they have said that Syria can never be the same again. They say that there exists no country that is called Syria right now. They say that Syria's character has completely changed, and it is obvious that whatever solution comes out, however this crisis is resolved, the civil war is resolved, Syria can never be the same again. That is for sure. To give you an example or just a glimpse of how huge this crisis is, this is a photo taken around 3 years ago when the siege of Aleppo was lifted for some time so that people could move out. So see the buildings here, they are destroyed. They look like they are right out of some movie, a utopian dystopian movie. And look at the number of people. They are all coming out of their homes to get food, to get water. There is no running water, no electricity in many cities since many years. And these all people now want to migrate to other countries. Obviously they would, because look at the condition of their country. So this is a very difficult situation for Syria right now, its people, and it has become a huge entangled war. Why? Because multiple sides are fighting each other, and you never know when someone is fighting with someone else and suddenly they shift their side and go to the other side. So there are shifting alliances. Like many people who were in Al-Nusra, many commanders and fighters in Al-Nusra, they went over to ISIS when ISIS was formed. But later when ISIS became too barbaric, They saw that ISIS is killing Muslims itself. So they came back from ISIS to other rebel groups. So now they came to FSA. Also, so this kind of changing loyalties is not good. You can never know whom to trust, and these shifting alliances amongst group is also causing infighting. So Al Nusra, ISIS, FSA, all these three groups are fighting each other a lot of time. Also Kurds are also fighting with ISIS and Al Nusra. There is an estimate that there are 75 rebel groups right now in Syria. This has made peace talks very difficult because out of 75, some might be ready to come to the table to talk, to have a peace agreement, but some may not. So you have to get everyone on the table, otherwise, peace is impossible. The backing of these world powers like USA and Russia has been dragging this conflict. Why? Because I told you that in 2013, at that time, Assad was on the verge of losing. Again in 2015, he was on the verge of losing. At both time, Russia came to his aid, and this is the reason that Assad government is still functioning, and the rebels are still fighting them. So many strategic experts have questioned whether this is the World War III, because many countries are involved, all the major powers of the world are involved in this conflict, and this has given rise to some situations where this can lead to open war between any other country. Just to give you an example, in 2015 when Russia started its bombing campaign against the rebels, one Russian jet was downed by Turkey. So one Russian jet, it crossed over into the area of Turkey, and Turkish army shot it down. The jet crashed, the pilot was dead, and at that time it seemed that Russia and Turkey might go to war with each other. So this was a very risky proposition for the entire world, that two big countries are fighting each other. But thankfully this did not happen. They resolved their crisis, and 1 year later there is no war. In fact, Russia and Turkey are cooperating with each other now. So this is just an example, and there can be a war between, let's say, Israel and Syria maybe next year, or even between Turkey and Syria, an open war if Turkey starts to attack, and the neighboring country of Iraq itself is in civil war, and that is widely connected to this ISIS and other groups in Syria. So all these conditions have led to a huge instability in Middle East, and we have to watch out what happens in the future. Please keep an eye out for news coming from Syria and Iraq. You must know the major things happening. Don't go into too much details which group is fighting whom, that will just confuse you, but do keep a track. Like for example, you must know that Mosul attack is going on right now. I hope you understood this topic, and you can write in the comment section what kind of videos do you want me to make on which topics, and also please give feedback on this video. Thank you.